Welcome to today's meeting of the Cabinet, both those that are participating and those who are watching on the live stream. If members have technical difficulties during the meeting, then please contact the Democratic Services Officer on call, who will attempt to assist you. On call today is Mr. Hughes, and his number is 577208. It will also be at the top of the chat thread for members if you need it. For those of you watching via the Council's YouTube stream, please follow the instructions below the video if there are any issues with the live feed. I would ask participants, when you're not speaking, please mute your microphone. Watching via the Council's YouTube stream, please follow the instructions below the video if there are any issues with the live feed. I would ask participants, when you're not speaking, please mute your microphone. This minimises background noise and will help everyone in listening to the proceedings. Microphones must only be on if the participant has been granted permission to speak. To gain my permission to speak, please very briefly indicate on the chat to the right side of the screen, and I will then make a note and go back to you once the person speaking has finished. Please note that we'll be following the usual Cabinet protocols in which other members of the Council usually only speak once on each item. Would everyone present please ensure that their mobile phones are turned to silent and they're not used to make or receive phone calls while the meeting's in progress. Please also refrain from checking emails or conducting other business, and ensure that you're in a quiet room free from distractions for the duration of the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed for members of the public. The meeting will also be recorded and subsequently broadcast on the internet. So first of all, can I ask members of the Cabinet to confirm that they are present when I read out their name? I'll ask for 20.1 members separately. But first of all, let's do members of the Cabinet. And I do have apologies this evening from both Councillor Whitehead and Councillor Alban. So, Councillor Duckworth, can you confirm you're here?
Here.
Thank you. And Councillor Yates?
I'm here.
Thank you. Now, before I come to item 20.1, I have to announce, I'm afraid, that item 4 has been withdrawn, or I am withdrawing it. And the reason for that is that it's been pointed out to me this morning, quite helpfully, by a member of the public, that the one of the documents circulated with item 4 is not the appropriate document to go with the report. It's a draft version of that document, and I think in the interest of transparency, we ought to be circulating the correct document with the report so that everybody can consider it, and we can have a proper discussion on that basis. I wasn't keen that we circulated the correct version tonight when the public haven't had an opportunity to see it. So my intention is that we'll bring that item back to the August meeting, and I do apologise to members and to members of the public who may have joined the stream in order to see what we had to say about that item, but we won't be considering it tonight. So I did have a number of members who wanted to speak on item 4, but obviously there's nothing to speak about. Does anybody wish to speak on any other item this evening? Doesn't appear so. Okay, so I've already dealt with apologies. Does anybody have any declarations of interest for any item of business on the agenda this evening? No, so I'll take that as read. Minutes of the previous meeting: to approve the summary and recommendations and decisions of the Cabinet meeting held on the 18th of June, copy of which is attached to the agenda pack. I will propose the minutes. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Duckworth seconded it. Unless I hear any objection, I'll take those as approved. And I'm not hearing any objections. So we skip over item 4. We go on to item 5. As Councillor Whitehead is not available this evening, I shall be introducing this item. The report seeks authority for the Council to enter into 2 new contracts for works to its housing stock. The works include a 5-year term contract for the completion of external cyclical decorations as required, and the full refurbishment of passenger lifts in 7 council-owned residential blocks. The external decorations contract will enable the delivery of a 5-year programme of repair and decoration. The works will include both cyclical external decorations to council-owned residential properties and to the internal common part of blocks of flats. The works planned for the coming 5 years have been valued at £1,028,895. Funding for this programme is included within the Council's approved medium-term HRA revenue budget. The lift programme will provide for the full refurbishment of the lifts listed in the report, ensuring that they have a further 25 years of life. The funding to complete the programme, estimated at 1.6 million, is included within the HRA budget report, also on the agenda for this meeting, which is due to be considered at full council on the 10th of September for decision. So I move the recommendations, and I'll just read those out for clarity. The letting of the contract for the refurbishment of 7 passenger lifts as detailed in the report, and the letting of a term contract for the completion of a programme of external cyclical decorations as detailed in the report. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
That's seconded by Councillor Duckworth. I don't know, Mr. Paulson, is there anything that you'd like to say on this item, as we don't have any other speakers?
Well, I think you've covered all the key issues in the introduction. I think probably the key thing, the reason why we're seeing this report now, and we haven't seen reports like this previously, is the result of clarification about the value of key decisions. So key decisions, effectively contracts over $250,000 that now have to come to Cabinet for decision. And so this report actually is going to be the first of a series of reports about the letting of new contracts in relation to housing.
Okay, thanks very much. Any discussion, members? Okay, thanks very much. So is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. So we'll move on to item 6, which is the budget monitoring report. Councillor Yates.
Thank you. In the general funds budget 2019 to 2020, Thanet District Council overspent by around £500,000. In order to set the budget for 2020 to 21, which is this year's budget, we had to find savings of around £730,000. Many of the planned savings we put into the budget in February are now unlikely to be delivered due to COVID. On top of this, the pandemic has added to our costs and negatively affected our income generation. Our current estimates suggest a total shortfall from lost income and additional expenditure of £5.6 million. We have estimated government grants of £2.6 million. This leaves a budget gap of £3 million. Any longer-term financial impact of coronavirus will be picked up in the 21 to 22 budget. Next year's budget will also have to address the underlying budget problem of undelivered savings, even if our income bounces back. Today, Cabinet is proposing action to address the current year gap. Cabinet does not want to cut services or make redundancies, so the proposals provide funding for the £3 million from reserves. The Council already had low reserves before coronavirus, so there were difficult choices to be made as to which reserves to use. Cabinet proposals are set out in Annex 1. These are proposals to Council, so the final decision will be made by Council. In the meantime, members will continue to be kept informed by officers explaining the figures and also updating on any changes. There are a lot of moving parts, and it is almost certain that the figures will change over the coming weeks and months, including possibility that they will change by the full council in the 10th of September. By making a decision now, Cabinet is showing that it wishes to address the budget problems head on. This gives reassurance to the Section 151 officer that the council will take the decisions to address the COVID losses. We propose doing this by allocating some of these losses to specific reserves, some £2.2 million of them. The remaining £800,000 will be held in the COVID shortfall reserve and only allocated to service budgets as and when is needed. This helps manage the uncertainty in our estimates. Some estimates on income loss, for example, may turn out to be not as bad as we think, so not all the shortfall reserve may be called upon. If this happens, depending on the size of any balance at the end of the year, we may need to make a decision as to whether or not to retain the reserve. We do not know what the long-term impact of COVID will be on the council's finances, and we may well have to make further tough decisions in the weeks and months to follow. None of these choices are easy. I hope the council can agree on this list of reserves in order to protect jobs and frontline services. If Cabinet approves the report, it will form the recommendations to council. Because of the size of budget movements, only council can approve them. I therefore move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Yates. I think I'd like to underline my own feelings about the uncertainty of the position. I mean, it's absolutely right that we bring forward a report which estimates what we think the position is. And, you know, I pay tribute to the finance staff, Mr. Willis and Mr. Blundell, for the work that's gone into this report, because I know that I know a lot of work's gone into it. And also there have been some difficult decisions that senior officers have had to consider here and bring to Cabinet, and which we've had to look at. So we're very much subject to external factors in this report. I think if we were suddenly making a withdrawal of £3 million from our reserves for something that the council had done, then I think that members would be right to be alarmed. I think that we are dealing with a situation which is completely unprecedented, and we don't know how it's going to unfold, and we're doing our best to make preparations around that and make the decisions to protect the council's position, but most of all to protect the services of our residents and the jobs of our staff, because we mustn't forget them either. So I'm happy to support this. Unless there's any further comment. Right. Actually, I think I need to second it. Not quite sure whether I said that, but I am seconding it. Okay, are we agreed, members?
Agreed.
Thank you. And item 7, which is the revised HRA budget and monitoring 2021 and the HRA provisional outturn 2019-20, is Councillor Yates.
Thank you. The housing revenue account is having to cope with the same uncertainty as the general fund. The main potential impact of COVID is on housing rent income collection. This may yet be insulated from some of the worst effects of COVID, as about 2/3 of our rent income is from benefits. However, there will be an impact. Perhaps a bigger challenge to the HRA now and over the longer term is in accommodating the transfer of East Kent housing to the council. I believe there is agreement across the council that this is the right thing to do, and Cabinet has agreed that the date of transfer will be the 1st of October. But there are many costs of doing this. Taken together with the COVID estimated costs, the HRA has a budget gap of £1.4 million. There are substantial one-off costs relating to project management and IT. There are also costs associated with fixing the problems we're inheriting with East Kent housing. Many of the reasons for the decision to bring it in-house were related to tenant health and safety concerns around issues such as fire safety and gas safety. Our tower blocks require a huge amount of investment. Coupled with the cost of creating the new tenant and leaseholder service, the HRA's finances are taking a large hit. This report shows that over the long term, the HRA can recover, although some of the warnings regarding uncertainty that affect the general fund also affect the HRA. I move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Yates. I'll second that. Any further discussion, members? No. Shall we take that as agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay. So that concludes the business for tonight's meeting. So I declare the meeting closed at 17:43. Thank you to everyone who participated, to those watching from home, and the live streaming of the meeting will now end. Thank you.